One of the most unusual discoveries of the last century was made in Chile's Atacama Desert over 2 decades ago. Hidden in the scorched sand was a small mummy unlike any human ever discovered. Its unusual features led researchers to speculate upon its origin, with some labeling as proof that extraterrestrials have visited Earth. Debates have continued to this day, with some suggesting the skeleton an ancient humanoid, others an extraterrestrial. Some even claim this skeleton proves that an extraterrestrial group successfully created a human-alien hybrid. But just what exactly was discovered in the Chilean desert? Let's find out. The discovery of the Atacama skeleton. Oscar Munoz has been wandering around the ghost town of La Noria in the Atacama Desert back in 2003 when he came across something unusually sticking out of the sand. As he investigated the item, he discovered a strange white cloth that was tied elegantly with a violet ribbon. The entire wrap was only around 6 inches long, and Munoz opened the tiny package, which he found inside shocked not only him, but would soon shock the world. For inside lay the remains of a small, mummified girl that looked something straight out of a science fiction movie. The entire skeleton of the little girl was around 15 centimeters long, sparking huge debates as how this was even possible. The name Ada was given to the tiny mummified skeleton following its discovery. It has various unusual features, including 10 ribs instead of the usual 12, and her head was conical in shape, or what we might now refer to as an elongated skull. It was also later found out that Ada had a rare bone age disorder that made them appear to be much older than they actually were. Ada was likely sold illegally several times before she ended up in the collection of the wealthy Spanish entrepreneur Ramon Navio Osorio, an avid UFO enthusiast. The scientific data and testing. This tiny skeleton began making headlines around the world as various alternative researchers claimed that this was, in fact, proof of the existence of aliens. While many were quick to call this discovery an elaborate hoax due to the unusual features of the small skeleton, scientists eventually got involved and even carried out various tests. Ramon decided that it seemed worthwhile to get to the bottom of the mystery, and so he gave permission to Dr. Stephen Green to do some X-ray and CT scans on the remains. Greer even took things one step further by supplying microbiologist Gary Nolan with samples of Ada's bone marrow. Following these experiments, the scientists had all they needed to get a good reading on the genetic origin of Ada. Yet to their surprise, the small girl held genes that were similar to modern-day Chileans. The genetic testing was carried out by Stanford University in 2013. They declared that Ada was of a human genome and descended from a mixture of modern-day Chilean ancestry as well as European. Further studies provided scientists with the date when Ada was born, suggesting that she was less than 50 years old. However, this has been a great debate. While the genetic analysis gave Nolan comfort in his theory that she was of human origin, he was still unsure of why Ada had such unusual physical features. Many other researchers were not sold on the idea that the mystery of this small skeleton was solved. Nolan did go on to finally give some reasoning as to why he and his team from Stanford believed Ada was unlike any other human. In a paper published in the Genome Research, he wrote, "Ada is a female of human origin, likely of Chilean descent, and its genome harbors mutations in genes previously linked with diseases of small stature, rib anomalies, and cranial malformations, premature joint fusion, and osteochondroplasia, also known as skeletal dysplasia." Nolan and his team went on to claim that Ada has at least 7 separate gene mutations, which ultimately cause the various malformations. This is the reasoning which scientists give for Ada's unusual physical characteristics, including the advanced age of her bones and her extremely small stature. They ultimately finished by claiming that Ada was a human fetus that was stillborn or died not long after birth. But does this solve the mystery of the Ada skeleton? Are we missing half the puzzle when we consider the unusual abnormalities which the young Chilean possessed? A hybrid. A good deal of scientific study and testing has been carried out on Ada, and researchers did not deny the existence of human DNA in her genome. This led to the theory that a branch of extraterrestrials may have, in fact, created a human-alien hybrid in Chile. Not everyone is convinced that Nolan and his team were putting the advancement of science first. Instead, they believe he was simply trying to explain in the best way he could the unusual skeleton. One geneticist, Fauzan Al-Kharaya, who works at the Specialist Hospital and Research Center in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, doesn't agree with Nolan's opinion. Speaking with National Geographic, Al-Kharaya said, 7 genetic mutations are virtually unheard of. He went on to say that while they don't know what it is, it most certainly is not a deformed human being. This is an opinion held by various alternative researchers who claim that the skeleton could be some kind of advanced experiment carried out by extraterrestrials. They claim that while Ada was a human genome, are the scientists hiding the fact there could also be genetic material that doesn't align with our own? This would make sense, considering Ada has various deformities that are unlike anything expected of a child in that region. Ada is not the only unusual remains discovered in South America. In Paracas, Peru, similar elongated skulls have been popping up over the last few decades, and one researcher, Brian Forrester, has made it his mission to get to the bottom of the enigma. After years of paperwork, he was able to get permission from the Peruvian government to test many of these red and blonde-haired elongated mummies, and to his surprise, many of them come back with European ancestry, just like Ada. Brian was able to go one step further and suggest that Paracas skulls originated around the Black Sea area of Europe. Here we find more of these unusual elongated skulls. Brian later revealed that Paracas skulls also had a small amount of unknown genetic material that didn't match anything that we know to be human. Could this be proof that the ancient extraterrestrials spliced some of their own DNA with that of humans to create this unusual race of humans? And is Ada an ancestor to these unusual elongated groups that have been popping up everywhere from Mexico to Iran? Further genetic testing would have to be completed on an array of these skulls to prove this. But as it stands, some researchers are sure that this unknown genetic material found in some of the Peruvian skulls is enough to suggest that extraterrestrial invitation right here on Earth. Conflicting opinions. There have been various conflicting opinions about the true nature of Ada. It seems ideas are split between the logical scientists who are working to prove that she is a deformed human, whereas open-minded researchers are still considering the possibility that there is a lot more to the story of this unusual little girl. While this started as a story about aliens and went international, it's really a story of a human tragedy. A woman who had a malformed baby. It was preserved in a manner and then hawked or sold as a strange artifact. It turns out to be human, with a fascinating genetic story from which we might learn something important to help others. May she rest in peace, shares one of the scientists. While the community is still divided on just exactly who or what Ada is, no one will deny that she isn't an extraordinary find that has sparked a great deal of curiosity. While there is evidence to suggest Ada is nothing more than a miscarried child of Chilean European ancestry, her many deformities continue to spark interest from alternative researchers around the world. The fact that she may be related to the elongated skulls of Peru, a group that has an unusual amount of previously unknown genetic material, gives credence to the idea that she may, in fact, be a hybrid. What do you think? Is Ada simply a Chilean child with various genetic mutations? Or could she be part of some kind of ancient genetic experiment carried out by a group of extraterrestrials? Let us know your opinion in the comments section.